Words about the fantastic Fenians. The Fenian movement, 1858 to 1924, was a reaction to the Great Famine. The absolute horrific scenes, and they are very well documented, especially in the southwest and the west. And for example, a British doctor sent by a relief agency to Bantry described going into the lanes at the back of Bantry and seeing people in dark windowless hovels with only the door as an entrance and for light, cowering in corners, cold or wet, dying, unable to help themselves and unable to get any official relief thanks to bureaucracy. Or the families in Connacht in the west of Ireland who died wholesale in their houses and who were never recorded. And there were some pretty ghastly scenes. A famine in the greatest empire the world had known to that moment, but it was pretty horrific. And after Ireland had lost 20% of its population within less than 10 years, the reaction was mixed. A lot of middle-class people settled down to new opportunities that were offering to them, and the London Times and also the Irish Times had an approach of we make the best of this now. The way forward is Ireland within the British Empire. Let us use the opportunities that are there. For example, farmers in Clare. Clare had shanty towns in the 1850s, people who had been evicted and who were living in, couldn't call it houses, in hovels made of bits of old wood, sods of turf, sods of grass. They were trying to live there, and they begged every traveller who came past on the road. And one by one, these people died of malnutrition, immune deficiencies. Charles Kickham, in his novel Knock-na-Gow, describes these sort of scenes. And constitutional politicians were well aware of it. These people died of within a few years. And the establishment very much accepted this as a given. Not so the people who founded the Fenian movement. And I say the people, not the men. Because besides John O'Mahony, Michael Doheny and James Stephens and their followers, often shadowy at the back, there were the women who facilitated their husbands and male relatives to keep going, who covered up for them, who carried the rifles under their clothes. Same for the Invincibles. And they had this shadowy core of females who assisted them. And they did not accept contemporary policy. They defied economic ideas about the way forward, and they founded the Fenian movement. I say the Fenian movement, it's a little confusing between the Irish Republican Brotherhood and the Irish Revolutionary Brotherhood, the Fenian Brotherhood, the Clan na Gael, and so on and so forth. But it was wide-ranging movement. They were here, there, and everywhere. And although they conspired somewhat, in a somewhat disorganized manner at times, and sometimes we must admit they fought each other rather than the common enemy, they kept going. And their determination was quite fantastic. There are comments in the London Times which says, we thought they would be dying off now after the rising of 1867, and it was going downhill rapidly with the Fenians. But here they are on their way to Glasnevin Cemetery, the mother of a leading light having died, and they processed, the London Times wrote, magnificently to Glasnevin Cemetery and mourned in great style. And the Times kept saying, how come they get new energy at these graves here in Glasnevin, and off they go, and here they are back in action. and we are here particularly because of the Manchester Martyrs and Michael Barrett, who was executed in London on the 26th of May 1868. This year is his 150th anniversary. The Clerkenwell rescue was a rescue operation badly gone wrong, and on rather dubious evidence. He was the last man to be publicly executed in London at Newgate. He behaved he was under very great pressure, had very little support, but he behaved in a very upright and very brave manner. It's his 150th anniversary. The National Graves have erected a plaque on in his memory in the City of London Cemetery, where his remains eventually ended up. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible to separate him from the other cremated burials from Newgate. A similar situation with the Manchester Martyrs. The Manchester Martyrs executed on the 23rd of November 1867 for the jail rescue of Colonel Kelly, who was the leading light still keeping the flag flying in Britain at the time. They had very little money. Lots of people had been arrested, but Colonel Kelly's correspondence, which has survived in America, he says in one letter, send us some money while we get a bite to eat, we shall keep the flag flying. And he was rescued by the Manchester Martyrs, and again, in their case, it was a very dubious trial, and they were executed in Manchester. And as it is not possible to separate the remains and bring them home, they are commemorated here at this cenotaph. The Fenian movement is characterized by they were here, there, and everywhere. And wherever I travel working in tourism, there is sure to be a Fenian. Not just in Ireland, not just in America, in Britain too. When I was leading my German tour in Liverpool, I of course thought of the Manchester Martyrs when we passed Manchester. When we were in Liverpool, I thought of John Denver, who kept the pot boiling. In London, of course, many of the Fenians, for example, Dr. Mark Ryan, who lived in old age near here in Glasnevin in Lindsay Road. He was the leading light in London for many years. And when I had to take my tourists on a British coach to Dartmoor, I talked about John Boyle O'Reilly, the poet, editor, and military Fenian who risked and sacrificed a military career for what he believed in. As I said, the Fenians were very much inspired by what happened during the Great Famine. Kilkham said, give us back our country and let us see what we can do with it. They were full of indignation. They knew it was going to be a very long struggle, but they weren't going to give up. They were willing to make sacrifices. And without them, there would be no GAA. Think of P.W. Nally, who rests in this cemetery under a monument erected by the National Graves Association. He started organizing sports for the people in Connacht. He was from a wealthy background. He used his father's land to run sports without landlord patrons, without the upper classes getting involved and directing this politically. He was in jail when the GAA was founded, but the Fenians were very much in the background, founding the GAA, directing the GAA, inspiring the GAA, and there is a description of the early GAA in the Irish Times, which said the athletes, before the match began, marched across the field with their hurleys across their shoulders, and they seemed like the army to come. And the lead speaker has already pointed to the visual effect here. Usually it's the victors who get the monuments, who write history. But the Fenians didn't accept that. They collected money, they erected monuments, they ran commemorations again and again, pointing to the sacrifices made and the aims they were working towards. One of them said, we are erecting these monuments to our own dead to show that people who suffered and died for Ireland are not forgotten, and that they are valued and appreciated by us. And every time you look at a Celtic cross or Maid of Erin or Wolfhound or Round Tower, that is Fenian imaginary, and it's all around you. And not to forget the famous Fenian ballad, The Rising of the Moon. I still love it. I've heard it since I was 18. And yes, they did row amongst each other, and there were all sorts of splits. But never mind. They kept it going, and they had wonderful enthusiasm, and there were literary figures. Think of Yeats. He was a member of the Fenian movement. Maud Gonne was a member of the Fenian movement. She was one of the very few women who was sworn in, or T.W. Ralston, who translated that very fine poem from Old Irish, The Dead at Clonmacnoise, which is still in many Irish poetry collections. And Fenians were also painters. If you go to the National Gallery, have a look for Aloysius O'Kelly, Mass in a Connemara Cabin. That was painted by a Fenian, a card-carrying Fenian, whose brother, J.J. O'Kelly, was a leading light in London and in Dublin. Later on, he was a great supporter of Charles George Parnell, and some of the Fenians entered the land war with considerable enthusiasm. And I don't wish to keep you here forever, but Kickham summarizes the Fenian spirit. And the Fenian spirit outlived the end of the IRB in Ireland. Kickham says, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth enthusiasm." And they were full of their convictions, and they beavered away eagerly and in an interesting manner. Or to finish up what James Stephens, who is resting here right beside me, in the Fenian Oath which he composed with Thomas Clark Luby, his loyal assistant, who is buried in New Jersey. He said in the Fenian Oath that the Irish Republic virtually established. It was a very long time from any independent Irish state being virtually established in 1858. But the energy of the Fenians, the conviction that they were not going to settle to dreary political realities, I think it characterizes them, not to mention the women like Mary Jane O'Donovan Rosser, who was a very important lady and great self-confidence in her early 20s, traveled all over America and Britain, giving readings, giving poetry sessions to publicize the Fenian movement, to collect funds, to try to heal the breaches between the various branches. Or Ellen O'Leary, the poet, sister of John O'Leary, who was also an excellent publicist for the movement. And of course, when you dig for Fenians, you will find them everywhere. I found over 1,000, which I have in my book, in Munster, with little biographies, and there are at least 300 or 400 more I also collected, and I've also collected 300 active in England. Anyway, I'll finish now, or I'll get carried away totally. I think they were absolutely fantastic movement. Thank you.